Hi, lovelies. Natalie, the old school otaku here. And yeah, it's I feel it's a good enough time to do another one of these vlogs. Um there's quite a lot of details and things that I would love to get into, but it's going to require me to be a little bit more mobile and a little bit more readily available to be able to hop up and get on and be able to get to my PC so I could do editing and things like that for some of these. So I figure for the time being, at the moment, I want to kind of stick to stuff that I can more easily do with just a one shot. I turn my cell phone camera on and let's go. So I know this is definitely different than the type of material I traditionally would produce. But yeah, this is kind of my life right now. uh, so it's a little hard to talk about like anime reviews and going over my pickups and things like that when, well, I'm not moving too much farther than I currently am at this spot right here. So let's get into that. And that is what's home life like after bottom surgery? So yeah, it is now Saturday, and I came home on Wednesday from my bottom surgery, my vaginoplasty that I had, and I'm recovering pretty well. Overall, I'm not really in much pain, if any pain at all, really. I'm in enough pain that your basic over-the-counter pain medications are handling me very well. Between ibuprofen and acetaminophen, those are doing pretty much the job. Um, it's not painful to do most tasks, really. I mean, I need to limit my lifting. I can really only lift about 10 pounds or so, and I need to be careful as I am lifting said 10 pounds with how I lift and whatnot, because I do have multiple incisions and place things in a lot of different places. They kind of cut me open in a couple of different places. I've got little scarrings around my belly button. There's a little side help port that they cut into on the side of my belly, and then plus all of the stitches and sutures and everything around, down there. Yeah, I mean, depending on how I stretch and how I move, I could aggravate them at the moment. So I'm very limited in my mobility at the moment. I can walk. In fact, walking is great. They want me to get up and move. They want me to walk and move around quite a bit because one, they're trying to keep me from being so sedentary that I'm going to develop clots and blood clots. But two, they really want me to get that blood pumping and other things too. And just as I start stretching and get more into and used to moving around, it makes things a whole lot easier and a whole lot better. And I will say, as the days have progressed and as I have been getting up and moving around more, it is getting easier and easier to do so. So that's great. Overall, my least favorite thing I have to do at any point in time during the day is getting up and sitting back down. The act of getting up is partially painful depending on how I get up and um, how much pressure gets placed down there in the process of getting up. Never really realized um, how much you move and how much weight you actually put on your effectively your groin up until now. But wow, um, it's quite a lot actually. And of course, having to get up and have bowel movements that can be relatively painful. Just being in that position for an extended period of time um, can and does tend to get a little painful. And when it is painful, I see a little bit more discharge and things. Um, but I am up, I am mobile, and I'm able to move around. But when I'm not moving, I'm either laying down in my bed or I am sitting here in my command chair, as it were, my lovely recliner. That is extremely old at this point. I think this was a gift from one of my parents' friends back in the 80s. And I've been sitting in this chair since the 80s. It's been one of my favorite chairs, and I'm so glad I was able to, take it off my parents' hands. And it has been lovely, actually. Like, it puts me right in the proper position. I don't need any butt pads or anything for home use most of the time if I'm sitting in this chair, because this chair has just this perfect divot that very easily sets all of my sit muscles up in a specific way so that I am not sitting on the perineum, as they call it, that general area that you usually do tend to sit on. I'm not sitting on that. I'm labeled a little bit further back. So if you imagine your butt here and your legs coming out like here, you're used to sitting a little bit more like here, but I'm sitting a bit more here is kind of the way to put it. And in a lot of ways, it's like laying down, especially when I, push back and lean back. It's a lot more similar to laying down, and I can move my legs around. I can lift my knees up and just set them down, and it's really nice to be able to just, kind of move around and get a little bit of that exercise in, but while sitting. And watching TV or playing games or things like that. It's really nice. So that's kind of what all of that has been like. And so since this is my command center, as it were, and I tend to spend a majority of my time here, I've got a lot of things around me that I need all the time. So I've got a little table sitting right here that y'all can see. And this has, my drinks and whatnot. I've got plugins for plugging my phone in and my watch charger and other stuff here. And I'll set, random bits of food here if I have food at the time, or a bunch of other things. And I've got logs here. Dilation is kind of the name of the game. And that is something that I have to do 4 times a day. And I'll get more into the details of dilation later, but I've got my dilation log because they want me to keep a log and track each time I'm dilating, how difficult it was, which dilator did I use, things like that. And I'll be bringing that with me when I go into pelvic floor therapy, which I believe happens, my first appointment is about 3 weeks after the surgery, which will put it in, I think, my first one isn't next week, but it's the week after, effectively. And then it's every week from that point on for a little while we measure and verify, where I'm at. But yeah, outside of that, I've got another table over on this side. It's a standard fixture type table. It's got a couple of tiers, really great for stuff. And so I got my laptop down on the bottom tier, a couple of manga and books sitting on top of there, my discharge paperwork, close and easy at hand. Like, everything is at hand. The cute plushie that one of my partners lent me. I'm not saying she gave it to me, but she lent it to me so that I could cuddle it in the hospital and back home to remind myself of her. Is here. I very much love plushies, and it's always fun to, cuddle my surrogates for my partners. It's always nice. But I've got my medications real close at hand, my ibuprofen, my acetaminophen. I've got access to my dilators really close by. I've got a garbage can to throw garbage into all of my medications, gauze, and things that I may need for different applications. They're all just right here, easily accessible, right close to where I'm at. I've got snacks in supply that I can quickly get at and whatnot. So I'm pretty well set up. Like, I don't have to go far from this seat to do most everything. And I think that is something to really think about if you are looking into this surgery, is where will you be setting up? Where will you be spending a good portion of your time, a good portion of your day? Because you should make sure that you can access most everything that you need to really close to that. Because if that's where you're going to be spending most of your day, where you're going to be the most comfortable, um, you should make sure that you don't have to stray too far. I don't have to get up to go get my medications when it's medication due time, and it does happen at random intervals throughout the day. It's not as easy as when I wake up and when I go to bed, as most of my other medications, because the medications they sent me home with from the hospital do have slightly different timers on them. I got to make sure that I keep those, and I actually have those set up as timers on my phone, so that when I take it, I set the new time, reset the timer, and it reminds me, hey, time to take your meds. Take this med, this med, this med. Take this med, this med, this med. Is basically how it ends up working. So that's really nice, and I've got timers set for that. Another thing that I think is really something to think about with all of this and your home care and whatnot is setting yourself up on a schedule, because that is making things so much easier. The first couple of days, I didn't have much of a schedule lined out. I was just kind of waking up when I woke up because I knew getting home from the hospital, I was not sleeping very well. So I was trying to make sure that I got as much sleep as I felt like I needed. I was rested, all of that. And that kind of threw off a lot of my schedules, so to say, because what they want me to do as far as dilation is concerned, that is the most rigorous, time sink, annoying thing that I do in my day, is dilation. But it is so very much needed. And I was, for the first couple of days, I may have only gotten 2, maybe 3 dilations in just because of the timing. The timing wasn't great. And, they want me to do that basically once every 4 hours while I'm up. And they want me to do it 4 times a day currently right now. There will be other instructions that you may get from your doctor that may be less. I don't think it's going to necessarily be more, but what my team has seemed to find out is that starting early on, getting this going early on, and trying to do it as often early on really actually helps, with that vaginal health. Helps with depth, helps with girth, all of those things. And the type of surgery I have, just as a little slight aside, the type of surgery I have does, basically they've told me that I don't necessarily ever have to worry about my vagina closing. I don't have to worry about losing depth. What I will lose in the process is my ability to handle girth. The dilators are all the exact same length, but they do get bigger and bigger as far as their girth size. Not that big. Not that big at all. But yeah, so and I'm on the lowest setting right now, as far as all of it's concerned, but I'm able to currently take it all, because that's how they calibrate. Um, during surgery, that's how they calibrate it, is so that I can take all of that, and that's where they set it to in the middle of surgery. So that's in the end how it all works. So knowing that I'm still able to do that, and marking down how difficult it was, how long I did it for, which dilator, and all of that, and any other little notes that I have to say, really will help my pelvic floor therapist understand where I'm at, will help my doctors understand where I'm at, and helps me understand where I'm at. Because, I mean, is it news? I don't know. But I am a sexual being, and my whole reason for wanting vaginoplasty like I did, other than just feeling more content in my own skin, the reason why I chose the type of vaginoplasty that I went in for, which is peritoneal pull-through, is I want to be able to have intercourse. I mean, we're adults here. We can talk about these things. I'm a very sexual being, so I'm I want to have these things. So that's really it. That's the base part of all of that. So yeah, but what is really my day like? So like I said, every 4 hours I'm supposed to be dilating. Dilation takes 15 minutes. Once it's inside, they want me to hold it in there for 15 minutes, and that helps train the body to be able to handle that. And it's also used to apply medication. Like there's this lovely antibiotic and whatnot that is given to me, and I apply this to the tip of my uh, to the tip of my dilator, and then lubrication beyond that. Lots of lubrication actually to make sure it goes in really easily. I'm not damaging anything in the process, especially so early on in the healing process, making sure all of that goes. And so that's how I apply it. Is part of my regimen is making sure I get that in there, um, and that's all great. That's what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's all happening. So like I said, that's 4 times a day, 15 minutes, but I need to set up for it. And admittedly, this chair is like the perfect spot for me to do it in. So I've got this medical pad that I put down that helps protect in case it gets too wet, with everything. So I'm not getting stuff everywhere. They have these special pads that they sent me home with, nice little wedges that kind of help lift you up at a proper angle so you can get in there. Then I've got to grab the applicator, apply the gel to the tip, then apply the lubrication to the rest of it, and then go through the process of sticking it in. And then once it's in there, then I set the 15-minute timer. Sit around for 15 minutes figuring what to do. I usually watch a YouTube video or two or something while that's going on, browse the internet, things like that on my phone, and then timer goes off. Hey, you're done dilating. Time to move on from that. And so move on, pull the dilator out, grab some gauze and some tissues and kind of clean up down there, pull the excess out and whatnot as best as I can, clean up, then get up from the chair, take both the dilator and the wedge to the bathroom, clean those both off, dry them off and whatnot, and set them aside for the next time I have to use them. Come back out, take the pad off, and then I can sit down. And that's after getting dressed and everything. And oh, I forgot. Before I actually do the dilation, I need to make sure I actually go to the bathroom, because well, we're not really into water sports, as it were, and there is the potential for that happening in the process while all of that's going on. And hey, think about timer right now. My little alarm is going off. My timer is going off, telling me it's time to take my meds. So I'll be doing that here relatively shortly. I'm still within a pretty good amount of time, so I'm not worried. Let me mark that off. Like I said, day is very well regimented right now. And I've been working towards that as the days have progressed. So, average day for me right now is my alarm goes off at 10 a.m. I get up, get ready, throw on my clothes, whatever I'm comfortable lounging around in. I get up and do my hair and other things just to make sure I feel good, as it were. And then I make a glass of chocolate milk, sit down here in the chair, and go through my medication, get all my morning medication out of the way, the medication that the doctors gave me that I should take in the morning, or at least as soon as I get up, and to start those timers, flick those timers off of, which ones need to happen. I've got a timer for 6 hours for one type of medication, a timer for 8 hours for another type of medication, and I've already run out of the one that I think was only 4 hours, so I don't have to worry about that. And then I kind of sit around and just kind of ease into the start of the day, because getting up and moving around the first time in the morning is relatively uncomfortable. Then my next alarm goes off at noon. Dilation time. So I go through the dilation. We already described that, so I don't need to go into that more. And I will make a video where I go more in depth on what it takes to do dilation, because I think that's important. Um, so I'll go into that another time. So I do my dilation, get all of that said and done. Then, hey, I should probably make lunch. So by 1 o'clock, I'm eating lunch, hopefully. Then it's kind of sitting around doing whatever I need to do, and then next alarm goes off at 4 o'clock. Time to dilate again. Go through that whole entire process, and it is about a 30-minute time sink every time, between the 15 minutes of the actual, sitting in there dilation, all of the prep work that goes into setting up the area for the act of dilation, the tear down of that, the cleanup, all of that. It effectively is about a 30-minute time sink. I am getting a little bit better, a little bit quicker on being able to do all of this, but it's still really close to 30 minutes every time. So that is 2 hours out of my day currently that I am kind of stuck here, not really able to do too much. So you may have, if you follow me on my personal Twitter, you may have seen some interesting videos come out over the last couple of days. And that's just me trying to pass the time and make light of a very awkward situation, as it were. So dilation finishes, hopefully by 4:30, and then now I have 3.5 hours till I have to do it again. Pain medication alarm will probably go off at 6. Well, actually before 6 technically, because it's 6 hours after I took my initial medications. The pain thing should go off. The every 6 hour one should go off and whatnot. So I usually have a couple of beeps for medications during that period, and then 8 o'clock hits. Now, hopefully, I've eaten dinner before 8 o'clock hits, but sometimes it may not happen. 8 o'clock hits. Alarm goes off again. Time to dilate again. So again, I go through that whole entire process. And then I'm free to do whatever I want for pretty much the rest of the night until, well, midnight hits and dilation time again. Like I said, every 4 hours. It is very annoying having an alarm go off every 4 hours, basically, while I'm up. With 2 hours of lead-in from the time I wake up to when the first alarm one goes off, and then 2 hours after the last one happens to when it's basically time for bed, because I've set my bedtime to around 2 a.m. I usually get pretty tired by 2 a.m. normally anyways, and so it just kind of works out. I go to bed at 2, wake up at 10, allows me to get a solid 8 hours in every night, and I think while I'm healing, it's a really good idea that I try to get that solid 8 hours, even though typically throughout the week, normally, if I'm moving around normally, I really only aim for 6. But that's kind of how it is. And yeah, that all tends to go. So part of the other thing is, through all of this, I end up having, multiple bowel movements and other things that I have to do. They don't want me straining when I am having a bowel movement. So they send me home with lots of laxative. This is basically Miralax. Clearlax is what they sent me home with from the hospital, and then I've got a bit of Miralax sitting around too, and once per day a packet, just to try and keep my stool very well softened. That's not actually Gatorade, it's like Kool-Aid. These Gatorade bottles are really nice for refilling water and things like that, and then making individual things of Kool-Aid or other drinks. Really nice for that, actually. And I don't have to worry about spilling it, which is kind of nice. So yeah, I've got that going on, and so there's a bit of weirdness that goes on with that, because they don't want me straining, because the straining could potentially cause damage to the new areas down there, and also straining, if I strain too much, that could potentially be a problem anyways. So they got me on that too. In between all of that, they actually send you home with one of these. I think they're called spiralometers or spectrometers, something like that. And kind of the idea is you breathe in through this hose, and there's a little happy face here, and that's where they want this to show up. So you want to kind of keep this here. If it gets up too high, it means you're breathing too quickly. You go here, they want a very solid, just methodic pace, and then this kind of shows how much you have going into your lungs, the approximate milliliters going in. And obviously, if you take a really quick breath, this thing can go up really fast. But they don't really care about it going really fast, really up high. They more care about is trying to aim for here. And actually, this is considerably higher than I had it before. Um, it's just this is kind of like the aim point where you're trying to aim this, but then you're also trying to keep this here. And what that's doing is that is exercising your lungs, making sure that you're getting enough oxygen in, um, and whatnot. And so I do this in the hospital. They had me doing this about every hour, going through and doing this. And then once I'm home, I'm doing it less frequently, but every so often I do it. So let's have a go. And that's really all there is to it. And I kind of kept it right here at where the smiley face was, and I basically hit my mark. So that's fine. But that's this. You'll be doing this quite a lot too. uh, but really, outside of that, it's just trying to keep myself entertained. Like I said, I'm not able to get up and move around a whole ton at the moment. So I'm limited to what I can do. That's why I've got my laptop here really close to me so I can pop that out and look at things. I've got manga for me to read, and I got these from the public library. I've got finishing up Bloom Into You and trying to start Citrus. Love girls, love stuff. Um, and then of course there's the cell phone, which this is my cell phone case because the actual cell phone's connected up there. Um, got that going on, and I've got access to my TV over here, and I can get onto my Plex server, or I can get onto any of the other apps that I have access to, YouTube and whatnot. I've got a Switch plugged up to it, PS4. Um, uh, 4K Blu-ray player and whatnot. So I've got entertainment things I can watch and whatnot, and then it's just interacting with what friends come over to visit and whatnot. I'm trying to get to a point where I can more readily and easily get up and move around a little bit more, go visiting. Traditionally, when it comes to like my polycule, we have a tendency to get together every Saturday night and just hang out with each other and a bunch of our friends, just doing random things. So, I'm hoping to be able to start that up soon here as well, because cabin fever is a thing. I was cooped up in the hospital for a week, and I'm ready to kind of get up and move around a little bit more as I can, but I realize that that's not necessarily always going to be the case. Um, and of course, through all of this, coming home, what home life and all of that's like, it's just trying to make sure that I'm rested, moving around, keeping as active as I can be, making sure I take my medications, I handle my dilation throughout the day. And beyond all of that, it's also making sure that I am doing adequate prep of cleaning myself, when I'm all supposed to do that. There's just the normal washing and showering. I'm not allowed to soak. I'm not allowed to take a bath. Not allowed to go into a pool or go into a hot tub or something like that right now, because the stitches and the glues and things will dissolve, and we don't want that happening prematurely. So for about 6 weeks, I'm kind of restricted from doing any of that. But I can go into the shower. I can let the water flow down and through. They just don't want me to do heavy scrubbing and whatnot in those areas. But I can shower as normally, so it's always nice to be able to get up and do that. Uh, and then, of course, there's the whole thing of wicking away as much of the fun little bits that come off of, a surgical wound. Um, there's no easy way to say that. There is wounding and whatnot down there, and they do leak things, and the actual nurse staff and everything actually send me home with a set of starter pads. They are not the most elegant pads. They're not the nice looking pads. They are thick, wide, and just the puffiest pads you can think of. Um, and they were great while I was in the hospital after everything, the wound vac and all of that was taken out. They were great to have in the hospital to capture all of that, but also nice for the first couple of days at home. And then, of course, I had to go buy my own. So I've got my own feminine products here at the house. I've got really nice, big, heavy flow overnight pads that I utilize throughout the day, and then I have these overnight period panties, I guess, are what they're called, in a lot of ways that I utilize at night, so that I don't have to worry about constantly wearing my underwear to bed, because that's not the type of person I am. Uh, um, I prefer to have the least amount of clothes that I can when I go to sleep. So it's nice to basically just have these on, and then I don't have to necessarily worry about secreting all over my bed sheets, as it were, because that is something that can potentially happen. And there's lots of things coming out. I mean, there's what normally would come out of the wounds and whatnot. There is on top of that, there's just normal wetness because you know little over a week out of surgery, and she's coming online. And so, you ever heard of a girl talk about being wet? Well, it happens to me too. So there's that that I have to contend with. Don't really need to contend too much with the whole idea of incontinence and randomly peeing throughout all of that. Thankfully, I haven't really had any of those types of complications, but they could potentially happen. So that's been nice for me personally, at least, not having to worry about that. But then on top of all of that, there is I mean, there's all the lube that I use when I'm doing my dilation. I'm dilating 4 times out of the day, putting all of this lube on my dilator, and while yeah, a bit of that does come back out when I pull it out, and then of course I can clean up what's there near the surface, but there's what's all inside that just gets naturally pushed out, and so that gets picked up by the pads and whatnot. So it's nice having that in there. So it's picking up everything, wicking it away from my body, and then throw it out. Come in the morning, take it. Have my morning ritual, go to the bathroom and whatnot. Take off the pad, the period thing, put it away, toss it away. Grab one of my new pads for the day, plop that into my underwear, and I just go. It's girl things, um, and I know some of my male viewers may find me talking about some of these things as relatively gross, but it's normal everyday girl stuff that every girl has to go through at least at least for a week, generally a week out of every month. It's just what we have to deal with, and it's something that I'm dealing with now too. Because, well, I'm a girl and I have a vagina now. So that's really it. Um, that's pretty much kind of what the day in my life is kind of like right now. It's very regimented in a lot of ways, and I hope it'll be less regimented as the time goes on. Like, the first 6 weeks they want me doing four times a day, but then I moved down to three times a day, then twice a day, and then once a day, and then once every couple of days, and then once or so a week. So there is this progression as my next year goes out to being able to titrate down on the frequency, and that's really nice. Like, it's nice that while I am so regimented and having to spend so much time doing this dilation, that I'm not working right now. It's been it's been great. I mean, for one, I get a chance to heal and whatnot. Even though I have a job that I could probably do fairly well sitting here with my laptop in my lap and doing it. It's nice not having to worry about, well, I have this regimented thing where can't take meetings at this time, during this time and whatnot. And it could be to the point where, as it goes, as my hours go and whatnot, I'm using a considerable amount of my work day having to do this dilation task. So it's nice that I don't have to do it quite so much for the time being. And I'll be able to get down to less frequently, because once I do start going into the office, I do have access to the, um, we call them wellness rooms, but it's the mother's room, thing like that. I've got access to that, so I can go use that if I do need to do a um, do a dilation in the middle of my workday. And for a couple of weeks at least of me being back in the office, that very well might be what I'll end up having to do. So we'll see how it goes. I mean, I can't wait for the point where I will be. For one, I can't wait till the point where I only have to do it 3 times per day, because that definitely gives me more time that I can go out and do things, and not have to kind of be tethered to the house and tethered to the need to dilate. Um, so going down to 3 times a day will be great. I'm looking forward to that, and I'm really looking forward to going down to 2 times per day, because doing it twice per day means, okay, I could get up a couple hours earlier before going into the office, and I could do my first dilation of the day then, and then I could do my last dilation of the day at home after I get home from work. Or maybe I do it a little bit more frequently, close together, and the first time I do it is after I get home, and then I do it again a little bit later. So it's kind of, I have ways that I can play around it. Of course, once I finally get down to once a day, that's great. It's like, oh, once a day, woo, this is a thing that I do at like 10, 11 o'clock at night, when I'm hanging out watching TV here at home, typically. By that point at night, it's just a thing. Well, while we're doing this, time for me to go do my dilation. So that's kind of the hope. That's the plan. Things I'm looking forward to as all of this goes, and I hope this information will be beneficial to you, and and whatnot. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much what a day in my life is at the moment. I'm looking forward to being able to hang out with my partners, hopefully later today, and being able to do other things with them soon too. I mean, we're planning to try and hang out and go to the Spree, which is a lovely festival that's held in Livonia. Um, so I'm looking forward to being able to go out and do that. And they're looking into ways that I can stay comfortable, and they can wheel me around in a wheelchair and whatnot for a good portion of it. So my partners are so very thoughtful. I'm very happy, very lucky to have such support, physically here locally, to kind of help me through a lot of this stuff. And they're wanting to take me out and go do fun things like I normally would. Just trying to figure out ways for us to be able to do that. Finding a way so they can block things off so I can dilate while I'm there. Just kind of hanging out at the van and whatnot, and I can dilate there in the back seat, or in the bed and whatnot. So we'll figure out what we're doing there, and just yeah, it can get a little overwhelming, and that's why having all of these alarms and stuff set is actually making things a little bit easier to handle. It's all little miniature bits and bytes. Um, Some things that I can definitely say is that stock up on supplies early. I didn't really buy any pads or anything that I needed beforehand, and so I ended up going out and getting them once I came home, and I realized I needed more. I needed lots more. I was happy for what my partners had gotten me to use and whatnot while I was in the hospital and helped, start me off, and what the hospital and my doctors provided me. But there's it's not everything, and you do run out of it relatively quickly. So it's nice having backups and figuring out what I want and how to get it and how frequently can I get it and whatnot. So something to think about is just stocking up early, stocking up ahead of time. You're gonna need pads. You just are, and you should probably buy the thickest, most unflattering pads that you can to start off with because there's a lot coming out right now. It will get better as things progress, so you can use smaller and smaller to the point where you won't necessarily need pads. So that's nice to know that this does get better and better. It's just early on. It's kind of gross right now. I'm very gross. I feel very gross a lot of times, and that's why the showers help and other things to make me feel better. Because no one likes, or I don't think anybody likes feeling gross and nasty, but some people may, and if that's the case, that's perfectly fine. Me personally, I don't. I don't at all. So it's nice to be able to clean myself from time to time. Um, but yeah, uh, I hope y'all are enjoying this series so far of just kind of going through the different things that have to do with being a trans girl who is fresh off of her big surgery. Um, I've got another surgery coming in a couple of months too, that I plan to do some vlogging related to as well, in case you're interested. But this was the big fun grand surgery. I cried so much in the hospital. Um, for those of you who've seen my last post, I'm not just talking about the time where I had pain issues. I'm also talking about just happy tears. Just oh wow, this has finally happened. It's finally here. It's finally done, um, and all of the amazing feelings that go on, that go into that, as well as when I finally got to see her, when they took the wound vac and all of that stuff off, and I finally got to see her and see how pretty she was, despite how angry she was at the time. And she still is a bit angry. She'll be a bit angry and gnarly for a little bit, um, as she continues to heal. And I'm trying to be the best host that I can be, to make sure that she does heal and everything works out for us. Um, but yeah, uh, it's been a ride. It's been an emotional roller coaster in a lot of ways, and I am hearing the ice cream truck outside, and I'm trying to resist the urge to go running over and be like, "Hey, hey!" Would love some ice cream right now. We have some in the freezer. I can always go grab it. Uh, but yeah, um, enough of my rambling. Time to let y'all go. So thank you for tuning in today and listening to me talk. And I hope to, well, talk more later soon, about other things. If there's anything else that I haven't covered or you don't think that I've covered well enough within this series so far, please do let me know in the comments below, or you can DM me, message me on Twitter, and whatnot, and I will do my best to answer these questions in future vlogs, um, and whatnot. As best as I can. I'm not going to be able to answer certain things because, well, YouTube is a thing, and we can't get too graphic as far as it goes. But yeah, that is my hope. That's my plan, and I hope y'all have enjoyed. And this was very informative for you. And I hope to see y'all again next time. This is Natalie. the old school otaku, signing off for now.